It may not have been the prettiest thing in the world, but the Detroit Tigers walk out of Chicago with a series win over the White Sox. We'll talk about that and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Thursday, August 14th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first order. Welcome in. Welcome all. Happy Thursday, everybody. The Detroit Tigers win the series finale against the South Side in Chicago by a score of 1-0. They improved to 70-57. Nope. They improved to 70-52 on the season, while the White Sox fall to 44-77. Dyslexia is super fun. That is a series win over a division opponent on the road, albeit the White Sox are the second worst team in all of baseball. So, first thought is just a win is a win is a win. Okay, it's unfortunate that has been what we have had to preach really all week. Every game the Tigers have won. I guess Sunday was a comfortable, good victory against LA, but dating back to the last weekend series, it feels like almost every win has been, well, a win's a win. It wasn't pretty, but like here we are. It wasn't the prettiest thing in the world, but that is still a road series win, which we will always take and are hard to come by. I don't think anyone watched this and left super inspired or is like drowning in confidence. This offense, okay, and I will complain much more about this later. This offense scored 2 total runs off of White Sox starting pitching the entire series. A 3-game set. Now, that doesn't sound good, right? Because the White Sox are not good, and the number was 2. Let's take it even up a notch here. 2 runs, one of those was off of an opener in Game 1. Tyler Alexander was the de facto starter, if you will. He was the bulk reliever, the bulk pitcher in that ball game, and he didn't allow a run. So, with a little bit of nuance, if you squint a little bit, it really looks like the Detroit Tigers scored 1 total run off of starting pitching against the Chicago White Sox in an entire series. That is not great. Your best starting pitching performance was from a guy that you booted out of the rotation, which is somewhat funny. Paddock was good, okay, even if, whatever. Either way, Melton, fantastic on Wednesday. Does not have a solidified spot in the rotation. We'll talk about that a little bit later, too. And then the bullpen was solid in games 1 and 3 and was really not good in game 2. So I think that, I guess I'll just repeat myself again. We'll talk about that later. I think when it comes to the pitching, there's just kind of a hard line in the sand on who you trust and who you don't. And when you have a lead in a close game, we're going to go to the guys we trust. And when you don't, you're going to go to the guys you don't. And that's going to cause, 2-run deficits to become 4, 5, 6-run deficits pretty quickly, which is a problem. But in this game, the A team, we'll call it, in the bullpen, marched out there and was absolutely fantastic. Finnegan has yet to give up an earned run as a Detroit Tiger. Will Vest has an ERA in the mid-2s. Both of them have been absolutely fantastic, and Finnegan looks like a better and better acquisition every day. At the end of the day, this team has won its last 2 series, and we are never going to apologize or complain about that. Despite the concern since the All-Star break that I and others have put out there, the Tigers are, after this win, the third team in baseball to reach 70 wins and are tied for the most wins in the American League. Now, they were the fastest to 30, 40, 50, and 60 wins, and then were the third fastest to 70. So you saw the hiccup there. But the point remains, they have, I think, the second biggest or around still the biggest division lead in baseball and have the third best record in baseball, despite everything that's going on and has happened kind of surrounding the team. And I think that is incredibly important to remember. So what went right? Let's keep the vibes positive. The pitching was fantastic. Okay. Shutout ball, always a good thing. I don't care if it's against the White Sox or the Rockies, or if it's against, the Dodgers or the Cubs or the Mariners or the Brewers, who apparently can't be beat, etc. I'm always going to take a good pitching performance against another Major League Baseball team. Troy Melton gets the start. Before the outing, was told he probably would only go 3, maybe 4 innings. Instead goes 5 innings of almost perfect baseball. 5 innings, 1 hit, no earned runs, no walks, and 6 strikeouts. His ERA is now 2.82. He is incredible. In this ballgame specifically, if you're looking as to why, the command was just impeccable, really. Fastball command specifically, I think, was off the charts. He was dotting 96 to 97, touching, 98 miles an hour, wherever he wanted in the zone. Very rarely was he throwing fastballs over the heart of the plate. Heck, 5 innings, he only threw 56 pitches. We'll get to that in a second. The slider was really good. The curveball, the movement on the curveball was disgusting, okay? And it was really effective because of that. Now, he did hang quite a few curveballs still. There was one especially, might have been the most middle curveball I've ever seen, and it was ended up getting popped out because White Sox. But when you have 97, 98, that allows you to make a little bit more mistakes with your off speed, because people have to respect impeccable command with 97, 98 miles an hour. And that is the luxury that he provided for himself. It wasn't luck. He created his own luck by being a really good pitcher. And I thought that was unbelievable. So, like I said, pulled with 56 pitches. A few points as to, some people were upset about that. One, and this is more important than any other point I bring up, it worked. The Tigers had a team shutout. It worked. Okay, not going to complain when you give up 0 runs to a Major League Baseball club. Okay, it worked. It was the correct decision, clearly. B, he hasn't started a ball game in a while. I think that's important to remember. They want to protect his innings, protect his arm. And C, if he goes back to the bullpen, which we'll talk about that in stuff at the end of the show, I think they want to be able to use him at some point, a little bit more recently than maybe him waiting 5 or 6 days before they can even use a reliever. So we'll see what happens there. But he has been fantastic this year, and I really hope they try to continue developing him as a starter. He was just dismantling everyone, man. Lefties, I almost, dare I say, I was more impressed with his approach against lefties than righties. He was dotting fastballs up and away, so that's arm side up. Nobody could hit it in the left-handed batter's box. Left-handed batter's box, the right batter's box. No one could touch it, and then perfectly placed backdoor, trying to hit that back foot of a lefty, that left foot breaking ball, just incredible. And again, we haven't even really seen the changeup splitter thing he has to its fullest extent yet, or utilized a lot yet either. So I continue to be impressed by him. I wish he was in the rotation, but I think that no matter what his role is, he will be effective and he will help in any way, shape, and form. Let's talk about Sawyer Gibson Long, who came out of the bullpen and returned to the major leagues on Wednesday. We'll do that right after this. First, though, got to talk to you all about our friends over at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization for your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using and I completely forgot about over the years. Canceling those alone saved me money every month. Monarch makes it simple to review my finances with my partner as well. We can both see budgets, goals, and spending all in one place. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off of your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back tomorrow recapping Game 1 against the Minnesota Twins. Today, though, we talk about this 1-0 victory against the White Sox. Sawyer Gibson long appeared in this ball game back from his long injury. Time missed, really frustrating. Just, we wait a year and a half, 2 seasons almost, to see him on the mound again. He comes back and then has a completely unrelated non-throwing arm injury that keeps him sidelined for months. He's back. He throws 2 innings of 1-hit ball with no walks, no runs, and 2 strikeouts. ERA is now 4.32 on the season. Change up. My goodness. He hung one. There was one really bad one. Besides that, he was absolutely locked in. And that was really fun. He still got it, man. Like, that's something, we talked about his changeup before the Tommy John surgery, right? And just how this guy can sit mid-90s with a fastball and has this movement and this deception on this pitch. This is so effective. And I think that that's why the Tigers really want him to develop still as a starter as well. Now, this is a team that desperately needs bullpen help, has 6 guys ahead of him, if you include Troy Melton, on the pecking order in terms of, starting rotation. And on top of that, I'll reiterate, really needs any sort of bullpen help and innings. And he can provide that. So I'm fine for the last 2 months of this season just putting him in the pen and seeing what he can do. And he threw more changeups than any other pitch, and there's a reason for it. It is a dang good pitch. The Sawyer Gibson long changeup strikes again. A good fastball, good slider as well in this outing. And then you had the door closed by both of your closers. Kyle Finnegan, ERA down to 3.86 now on the season, has a 0 ERA since joining the Tigers, and Will Vest, ERA 6 sits at 2.61 rather. So now in total, those guys threw for 2 innings pitched of no hits, no runs, 1 walk, 1 strikeout ball, the 1 walk coming from Finnegan. I think that there's probably a little bit of empty the tank mentality with AJ in this ball game. You have Skubal going today as you listen to this. You have Skubal going on Thursday, and you are going for a series win in a 1-run game. Empty the clip. Throw all the best relievers you got out there and see what can happen. And that's what happened, and it worked, and we'll take it. I also thought the defense was solid in this ballgame. Javi in center field continues to be fantastic, which is just so wild to me. And then offensively, it was a rather quiet day, but there is one player that I want to highlight, and that is Kerry Carpenter. Goes 2 for 4 in this ballgame and faced a lefty twice. Did have a strikeout against Perez there, who honestly, tip of the cap to him for still being in the league. This guy, I feel like, has been pitching since I was in middle school and is still kicking the tires and bouncing around. Good for him. But probably more like high school. I'm old. Kerry Carpenter, 2 for 4. The strikeout he had against Perez, a lefty, I think it was his final at bat of the ball game. I think he starts off on an 0-2 count, works it full, fouls a ball off, does strike out. I just think that at bat was such a good at bat, even though the result ended with a strikeout. Got caught on a 91 mile an hour fastball up and in on the black. That's tough to catch up to when you're sitting on that kind of like not junk, again, respect, but that like soft tossing lefty stuff low and away for lefties. That's still kind of an adjustment to catch up to, but I thought the at-bat was great. He took a lot of change-ups low in the zone, check swing held up, breaking balls and cutters low and away. He had every opportunity, got thrown the kitchen sink from a guy that has a bunch of different, arm angles and shapes that he can throw at you. And even though it ended, again, with a strikeout, I was still really impressed with that at-bat. So just wanted to highlight that. And then, again, 2 hits on the day. Kerry Carpenter continues to be Kerry Carpenter. What went wrong in this ball game? Well, it was the offense, which you don't say too often in a win, but in this case, you sure do. 1 total run of offense. 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position, 9 runners left on base. The bottom 3 in the lineup was Javi, Trey Sweeney, Jake Rogers. That's just tough. That's tough. Javi has just plummeted back down to earth in the batter's box since the All-Star break. And then Jake Rogers and Trey Sweeney have not been good at the plate all season. So that's nothing new. And it's just kind of been par for the course. So that's tough. Immediately when you have a third of your lineup is just kind of a black hole offensively. Javi did have a single in this ball game, to be fair, but that's you're not going to produce too many runs with that bottom half of the lineup looking the way it did. Gleyber Torres at the top of the lineup had another rough game, goes 0 for 4. He had a rough series. He only had 1 hit, rough defense, had a ball bounce off his glove, couldn't get to a couple of ground balls in the Flaherty start. Also a slow base runner. You really saw that kind of exposed this series as well. Gleyber's been fantastic this season. I don't bring this up to be like, wow, like he sucks now, whatever. He still should be at the top of every lineup the Tigers have this year. He works counts, he draws walks, he doesn't strike out. Those are all great qualities, and he still brings those to the table, even like he didn't strike out a single time in this ballgame. He still does that, and that's why he should still be at the top of the lineup. But series like this, showcase, if he's not doing that, there's not a whole lot of value coming from other places either. And so that's just something I wanted to point out. But hopefully he can get back on the horse. Has been so valuable for the team this season. I don't know if he's been on the side of things that, went wrong really at all this year. He's been so kind of steady at the top of that lineup card. But yeah, I mean, 10 base runners as a team, a lot of guys on the base paths, and just couldn't get anything going, couldn't string anything together. They just lacked the big hit in this ballgame. They really lacked that big hit to kind of break the game open and put it out of reach. Shane Smith did really well against them again. He had a really good outing against them earlier in the season, but he also has struggled much more over the last month plus. Like, this is a guy that had a sub-3 for the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season and now has an ERA of, 4.4? I think it was going into the outing at least. Yeah, it's 4.01 now because he just threw 5 innings of shutout ball. But the walk rate has been a lot higher lately. And so, yeah, it's just frustrating. As I said at the top of the show, they scored 1 total run off of starting pitcher / again, bulk pitcher in game 1. 1. In the entire series. You had bases loaded, no outs in this ball game. You scored 1 run off of it. And again, that goes back to just this lineup in this ball game because you had Wenceel Perez hit a sac fly and then gets followed up by Javi Baez, Trey Sweeney, Jake Rogers. And so that's just kind of how the ball rolled. But again, it was good enough for a win. Let's talk stuff. Okay, we'll do that right after this. Got to talk to you about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy absolutely rocks. And it's time to fuel up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of the golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect drink for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your workday, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. What's the wildest shot you've made? Like, think about that, right? Was it, kind of a well-calculated thing where you had to focus in? Well, let's say you finish 18 and your dumb friend goes, hey, let's do that again. And you go, oh my goodness, it's 8 a.m. I just want to go to bed. This is totally not from personal experience, by the way. And I'm not talking about any of my stupid friends who are all very smart. Sometimes you just got to take a 5-Hour Energy Transfusion and get back on the golf course for the boys, okay? It's all about the good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without ever leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now, you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter a chance to win your dream golf trip for 2 or any golf tournament in the U.S. Tee up any trip. Visit 5hewin.com for the full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. So let's talk stuff. First off, we already talked about Sawyer Gibson long, but do want to note of the official transaction that was made to bring him back to the major leagues from his injury and rehab assignment down in Toledo. Cody Hoyer, can I talk? Goodness gravy. Cody Hoyer, option to Toledo, is an option, so he's still on the 40-man. We'll see if he gets another opportunity later. The velocity and the stuff is fine. He just really, the command was not, and he's got an ERA that's pushing 6. So we'll see what happens there. But Sawyer Gibson long, a welcomed addition to a pitching staff that desperately needs just any solid arms it can hang on to. Now, the bigger picture question here I want to ask is what happens with Troy Melton long-term? I guess I say long-term. What happens with Troy Melton in the last month and a half of the season? Is this a 6-man rotation type of situation? Is he kind of like that swing man, Tyler Alexander role, right? Remember, Tyler Alexander was, he would either enter the game in like the 3rd or 4th inning and pitch until the 7th or 8th, or he would just start a game, or you'd have an opener. Like, he just kind of was the Swiss Army knife that did everything. Maybe he can be something like that, but can throw 100 instead of 90. I don't know. I think, or there's obviously just he goes back to the bullpen, and that's all there is to it. But I think they want to watch his innings while also getting the most out of him, because right now his innings are some of the best on this entire team. I want to ask you a real question. Is it ridiculous? And please tell me if it is, okay? I don't want to be overreactionary with this. Is it ridiculous that if the playoffs started tomorrow and the Tigers hold on for the division and they make the postseason, that if you're making a postseason rotation, I want Melton in it over, man, I don't want to say anybody else, do I? I'm just saying the rotation could really use Troy Melton in it. And this, I hope Charlie Morton never gives up a hit ever again. Okay. I'm obviously rooting for the guy. But that move of like, we're going to move Melton to the pen and then get a veteran starter to kind of shore up the rotation is like, okay, well, what if Morton has an ERA of 5.5 and Troy Melton has a sub-3? Then what? Then you've just made your rotation worse just because, like, just for fun. So that's something that I'm very interested in how that is put together the rest of the season. And I'm curious to see, assuming the Tigers do hold on and make the postseason, what kind of role Troy Melton is going to have in that pitching staff come October. Okay. That's it for the ball game, really. Some other news and notes just around the league. The Minnesota Twins ownership group put out a statement saying that they will not be selling the Minnesota Twins, which Minnesota Twins fans were not happy about. Not a great ownership group over there. You know, I think that this somewhat lines up with, I don't want to call it the window necessarily, but you look at the outlook of the American League Central, and you have the White Sox, who are not good and are not like a year away from being good. Okay. You have the Guardians, who are cheap and competitive, though, right? You will never hear me underestimate the Cleveland Guardians. Okay. I am, for years on this show, I have preached like the Guardians are always there. Cleveland is always just right there. They could be a 500 team. They could be a 95 win team. They're always going to be playing competitive baseball and be in the mix at least, but they're not going to spend a ton of money to make that happen. So you don't have a ton of competitiveness in, like, to say, the free agent market necessarily within your division from Cleveland. Again, Chicago, don't have to worry about. Kansas City did a light buy this year, but has taken a massive step back this season. And before last season was perpetually last place. And then you have the Twins, who I thought was the biggest competition to the Tigers in the AL Central going into this season, and have had a catastrophic year on the field, sold everything and all of their players' mothers at the deadline. And now their ownership group that was like, well, we're going to sell everything away maybe to make it easier to sell, is like, you know what? Just kidding. You're stuck with us and we're terrible. I think there's a real chance the Twins are just going to enter full rebuild mode, if they haven't already just declared that. Take advantage of the division that you're currently in. You don't have a big market team to compete against in terms of money spent. Two of your teams are actively trying to lose games. And two of the other ones, Kansas City, not having a great year, and Cleveland not going to spend a ton of money in their product. You can make the AL Central just yours for a long while. You have the best record in baseball since the trade deadline last season. Not this season. Last season. And you have one of the best farm systems in the sport. But you have to use your own assets. You also don't have a giant contract on the books right now. You have Javi. You have a couple more years of that still. But you're pretty middle of the pack in terms of payroll. You could really just make this division yours for years to come. And I'm hoping that the front office sees that with news like this coming out of Minnesota. Speaking of great prospects, Kevin McGonigal, 2-home run game on Tuesday night. He's so good. I'm going to say this now, okay, on August 14th. And some of you are going to hear this and go, that's not even a hot take. You're an idiot for even hyping this up. I really believe that in spring training of 2026, we are going to be talking about, is Kevin McGonigal going to make the opening day roster? I really do think that whether that's at third or short or second, we'll see what the rest of the offseason brings. But I'm not guaranteeing he's going to make the opening day roster. I just think I can almost promise you it's going to be a storyline in camp. People are going to be like, wow, what are the odds this dude's just making the team? I really think that happens. What else is going to happen is the Detroit Tigers are going to go to Minnesota. They just played them last week and dropped a series immediately after the Twins sold heavily at the deadline. 6-3 win in game one, followed by a 6-3 loss in game two, and then a 9-4 loss in game three. People were not very happy. I was not very happy. You go to Minnesota for a 4-game set starting today. Game 1, Tarek Skubal against Bailey Ober. I mean, look, again, even with all the complaining and dooming that's been going on, if you win game 1 with Skubal on the mound and Ober, who has an ERA over 4 this year, if you win this game, despite how ugly it's maybe looked, you will have won 5 of your last 7 ball games. Go make it happen, baby. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we, of course, will be back tomorrow recapping game 1 against the Twins and then previewing the rest of the series as a whole as well. We'll do all of that tomorrow. Peace and love. Go to Therapy's Dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.